Hey, it's Jasmine. Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome, welcome. I love storytelling in life sim games. And lately I've been reflecting on how I actually build my stories when I play. So today I wanted to share a little bit of my process with you. So as I'm kind of talking through, I'm going to be using my experiences with The Sims because that's kind of where I spent most of my time over the years. But the way I think about storytelling really applies to any life sim game. You can use this process kind of wherever you play, whether it's Stardew Valley, Enzoy, Disney Dreamlight Valley, Animal Crossing, etc. I really feel like this process can be molded into whatever works for you. I didn't always think about storytelling in this way, like through gaming, but growing up, I always was into creative writing. And I feel like in a lot of ways, this is kind of a continuation of that passion, but a little bit more interactive. I absolutely love that storytelling challenges your imagination in a world where we really don't use that muscle anymore, especially with the advancement of all the technological things that we have now. I mean, we've got VR. I actually came into the YouTube Sims community much later in my life, but once I discovered it, my creativity expanded in like massive ways. I was really inspired by what I saw other creators doing and the resources that they used. And so this is kind of a combination of my journey and all the things I've learned from other people and the things that I've experienced and kind of making it into just a little tiny video about storytelling and how it can make your game so much more meaningful. Way back in Sims 2, we had photo albums that you could caption, which is a long time ago, I know. This is how I started keeping track of all of my old stories. I kept entire universes in my head with the help of these screenshots. That got it to be a little bit overwhelming between different life sim games, and especially since not all games have a photo album option, that was not the best long-term solution. I continued to evolve my process, and eventually I ended up keeping a bunch of notes in Excel, and like still to this day, I still have an Excel file with like my OG family, which is super fun to go back and look at. During COVID, I actually, as we all were online way more, I started exploring even more into the world of what other people were doing with their Let's Plays, and my imagination just exploded. I really feel like challenges, like Rags to Riches or legacy challenges really give structure to build deeper stories in your game. And I just loved that little boost to creativity that you get from doing those challenges. And then tools like Notion templates and family tree trackers, I mean, those have been massively helpful to me. Just even like in the past couple of years, I started using these things to really help me visualize my world a little bit more clearly and to see how my world develops across, generations of time, which is just really exciting if you're into storytelling like I am. How I build my characters really kind of depends on where I'm at and how my energy levels are. Sometimes I start with traits and then I kind of let those traits inspire the story. Sometimes I start with a story that I'm like super into and then I choose traits that kind of support that vision. It really depends where you're at creatively and where your energy levels are. And I don't think there's really one right way to do it. It's kind of just like what you're feeling for vibes that day. But what I do use to just help me keep grounded and moving forward in my character creation is kind of this like simple character starter kit, if you will. Nothing complex, it's just actually pretty simple. I always will choose a favorite color or style for my sim. I'm such a theme girly. I love a good theme, so I'm always doing something along the lines of that. And then I will usually pick a couple likes or dislikes. It doesn't have to be anything like deep or, complex. It could be as simple as your character loves to write, but hates being outside, just something to kind of help with storytelling and developing their personality. And then I also really love to include like one good juicy secret for my character. I mean, you can make this secret whatever you want. I use it as a way to create drama and intrigue and chaos and curiosity with my characters. So they're not just one note, so they have a little bit more to them, more depth to them. And then the last thing that I always have is just an overarching goal or aspiration for my character. That just really helps you keep on the path of moving forward in your story and knowing where the end is. And, every story has a beginning and an end, which leads me to kind of my next thing that I do in my process is that I let my my characters, my Sims, age up. And I know that we can get attached to our little pixel people, and I definitely have. But I've learned to really enjoy the process of building this story and then kind of letting that story go and building into the next one. I really only pause aging. I know in some games you can't, some games you can, but really I only pause aging if I'm really deep in a storyline and I just really want to explore it more. But otherwise, honestly, that aging is on, and I'm just gonna have to roll with the clock, you know? I also love using autonomy to spark drama or unexpected story arcs. And again, I know autonomy isn't always an option in every single life sim, but you can also intentionally create drama when it serves the narrative. And that's really where your storytelling, like where you get to control how your story is and how you want it to unfold. In some life sim games, you also have seasons, and that I feel like kind of also helps you move through the game a little bit more realistically, where you can decorate your home or your character with seasonal themed items. You can garden pumpkins and make, pumpkin pie for fall. And I think leaning into those kind of game mechanics and game elements really also help with that storytelling and that imagination to come out. You want your world to feel alive, and you want to get into it where you're in the zone and you're like sucked in and you're just like in your own little world. I do feel that customizing your neighborhoods or your home or however your world looks always keeps things fresh. And if you can do it with your original creations, that's even better. But I know that we're not all like super creative and want to spend hours, building things necessarily. So if there's a gallery option or there's other creations that you can download from other players, pop those into your game. It just gives it that little bit more of an edge that creates that interest and that curiosity. It invites you to go exploring. And that's what we want. We want, opportunities to create more story. And so if you're always on your home lot, which I've been so guilty of doing, I love to craft in my games and garden. So I'll be like just at the little home lot forever doing stuff. And your story doesn't necessarily progress when you're just grinding away on skills or gardening all the time. It's really important to make sure that you're progressing your character and having them get out and make relationships. I really love adding mods to my game. I've really just kind of experimented with that within the past couple of years. I'm like so newbie around some of these things that you guys are probably been doing forever. I just love that mods give you the creative control to have a little bit more realistic relationships and control over game mechanics that you otherwise wouldn't. So I know it's not an option for everyone, and some people just like to play vanilla, and that's cool too. And that's why I love this kind of process that I've come up with, because it doesn't rely on mods necessarily. It's really about putting certain things in place so that your imagination can like run free and create whatever it wants to create. This is like so kind of silly, but so true. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but if you haven't, this is your like number one tip of this video. So pay attention. Track what you want to grow. This applies to storytelling. Like when you track your milestones, when you track your relationships, your progress, your world feels so much more alive. It makes it feel realistic, and there's lore and all kinds of fun things that you want to get involved with. It also helps reduce your mental load, right? So when you're tracking all of these details, my brain gets overwhelmed, and like sometimes I come back to my game and I'm like, shoot, like I don't remember what I was doing, and now I don't really want to play because I've kind of lost that like inspiration. And so tracking your progress, whether it's in-game or another system that you use, it could be Excel, like I said, it can be Notion, right? It can be other cool apps or resources that people have created for you to use. But using those, I think, just really adds this element of freedom, because then your brain doesn't have to remember everything, right? You can just kind of jot notes down wherever your tracker is, and then it makes that rotational gameplay so much more smoother and so much more fun and less stress. I have been inspired by so many creators, but the magic really happens when you develop your own voice. Storytelling becomes richer when you're connected to your characters and their world, and you can't wait to jump back in to see what happens next. That connection is what elevates gameplay from just playing and like having fun and being distracted or whatever, like relaxing, to something really meaningful. impactful in your game. And that's why I love storytelling. You know, now that I've shared a little bit about this process and how I think about characters and storytelling, that you get inspired to do a little bit more storytelling yourself. I really want to show you what this looks like in real time. In my next video, I'm going to play through just a short session of gaming and talk through the decisions I make as the story unfolds. So if you are interested in seeing that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jasmine. Stay cozy and keep simming. Bye.